What's going on, everyone? Real Red Politics here, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the state of Florida and their governor's race, and mainly going to be talking about the 2018 election cycle that happened for the governor's race and the current election cycle that we're going into November. So the two candidates up for governor is you have Charlie Crist, who's the Democrat candidate. Then you have Ron Desantis, who is the Republican candidate. Ron Desantis is a very popular governor and is a very popular candidate in the state of Florida. He has been very strong on the issues. He's been very strong on the border. He's been very strong throughout his policies in terms of his COVID response. He kept the state open, and he allowed his economy to really perform magnificently. So now, if we want to kind of take a look at the election results in 2018 when Ron DeSantis was going against Andrew Gillum, we can see that Ron DeSantis only won by a margin of about 30,000 votes, which is about 0.4 points ahead of Andrew Gillum, who lost the election. And now this was back in 2018 when the state would be considered more of a purple state today. And when we take a look at some polling, we'll see that not only is Ron DeSantis favored among Hispanic voters, but he is favored in the majority of the state as well, as we can tell from polling. If you want to look over here real quick, if we want to look at current polling, we can see where back in July DeSantis was polling at. DeSantis was polling at about 8 points or so ahead of Charlie Crist. We get closer and closer to the midterms, and DeSantis is still polling above 8 points. And this is from 538. But if we want to scroll down and kind of look at what other polls have DeSantis at, if we want to look at, let's say, Florida Atlantic University, who has DeSantis at 11 points, then there's RMG Research, who has DeSantis at 10 points. Mason-Dixon Polling and Strategy has DeSantis at 11 points. We can kind of tell that Ron DeSantis is a very strong candidate. He is very popular in the state of Florida. And it also changes the kind of state Florida is. Because back in 2018, again, you want to look at the election results, Florida was a very, it was a battleground state. And it was a purple state. It wasn't solid red and it wasn't solid blue. But with Ron DeSantis coming into the governorship, being a very popular governor, I think that the state of Florida is actually going to go into the safe Republican category. I think Ron DeSantis wins by anywhere from 10 to 15 points, I think is what the margin is going to be, especially considering Charlie Crist is not a very popular candidate. If you look at the most recent debate, Ron DeSantis won the debate hands down. You can you can see that there was a poll done by Telemundo where Ron DeSantis was favored 51 to 44% among all Hispanic voters, which is a different margin than in 2018, where it was essentially the opposite. So when you're taking into account the majority of voters in the state of Florida, they highly approve of Ron DeSantis, and it looks like that it's going to be a safe Republican state. And I think when Republicans are gaining Hispanic vote and they're gaining a really big margin of votes overall, like Ron DeSantis is, that state is more likely to go Republican. We can see that here in the state of Florida, and again, you can look at all these different polls, and you can just kind of see the way the state's trending. And you can also see that the state went for Donald Trump 2 election cycles in a row. And so with these current trends, I think it is very possible that I'm 100% confident DeSantis is going to win the state of Florida, but I think it's going to be easily over 10 points. I'm going to say my estimate is going to be between 10 and 15 points, and I think that's relatively likely with all things considered. And so the other things to take into consideration are things like the national environment. And if we want to kind of take a look at the the approval rating of, let's say we want to take a look at the approval rating of, the President of the United States. We can look at the current approval rating, and we can see that Joe Biden has a much higher disapproval rating than he does approval rating. I think 41% is actually pretty high. I think if we're taking into account everything considered, the high gas prices, the inflation rates, the United States being in a recession, I think Joe Biden's approval rating is really more 30%. And I think his disapproval rating is even higher, maybe even upwards to 60%, because with everything going on and Joe Biden's foreign policy being abysmal, we are no longer energy independent. Taking all of that into consideration, people are more inclined to vote for Republican, which is a good thing. And so the national environment and the fact that Ron DeSantis had his state open and allowed people to, go to work and all that kind of stuff, and really kept their economy going, people notice that and go, they notice that and are really fond of Ron DeSantis because they kept him at work, everything he could do to, keep their economy open, to keep their jobs, everything that's important to voters. And so taking all of that into consideration, I definitely believe that it is going to be Ron DeSantis has turned the state into a safe Republican state. It's going to, and he put it into the safe margin. The state's going to go between 10 and 15 points, and I think it's likely that whoever succeeds Ron DeSantis will win by a similar margin. So anyways, guys, that's what I had for a video today. If you guys did like the video, be sure to comment, leave a like, and subscribe. It would mean a lot. Let me know what you disagreed with in the section below, and stay tuned for more political content coming your guys' way.